And right on time for Africa Focus. Good afternoon from where you're watching us from. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Talk to us via social media platforms at Switch TV Kenya, Joel Chacha M on Twitter, as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya and Joel Chacha. Send in an SMS via 111 444 111. But first, here are stories making headlines. Somalia President calls for African Union mediation to negotiate with stakeholders in Somalia's political crisis in order to find a solution. World leaders pay tribute to Idriss Deby, the Chad's president of more than 30 years who has been killed after being re-elected. Zimbabwe's government authorizes the release of some prisoners to limit overcrowding and prevent the spread of COVID-19. In a swift change of fate after news had come in that Chad's veteran President Idriss Deby had won a sixth term in the latest provisional results by 79.3%, an announcement broadcast on national radio Tuesday announced his death. According to the army spokesperson, the newly re-elected President Idriss Deby died of injuries suffered on the front line in the Sahel countries and north, where he had gone to visit soldiers battling rebels, as Lilian Maina reports.
President Idriss was expected to give a victory speech after receiving the provisional results, but opted instead to visit Chadian soldiers on the front lines, where it is reported that army troops killed more than 300 fighters and captured 150 others in Kanem province, with 5 government soldiers being killed and 36 others seriously wounded. The 68-year-old, who first came to power in an armed uprising in 1990, has ruled Chad with an iron fist for 3 decades, and his re-election was never in serious doubt, with a serious opposition, boycott calls, and a campaign in which demonstrations were banned or dispersed. The late president was a long-time ally of France and other Western powers. He was often lauded for his efforts in fighting insurgency, and in 2020, he was awarded the highest military rank, Field Marshal, because of the same efforts. However, there had been growing unhappiness of his government's management of Chad's oil resources. With the government and parliament having been dissolved, a military council will be in charge for the next 8 months, and at the moment, General Mahamat Kaka, the son of the deceased Chadian leader, has been named interim head of state. For Switch TV, my name is Lilian Maina.
Elsewhere, Zimbabwe's government has authorized the release of some prisoners to limit overcrowding and prevent the spread of COVID-19. This is in line with the United Nations standards minimum rules for the treatment of prisoners. The Mandela rules state that prisoners should enjoy the same standards of health care available in the community. Zimbabwean authorities should take immediate steps to provide detainees with adequate medical care and facilities to protect them from COVID-19.
We were
crowded in cells despite the COVID scare, and sometimes we were 25 in a single cell. We were aware of the prevention measures, but it was difficult to stay even a meter apart from the next person, and we even slept in a crowd. And I think this is the main reason for the release of some prisoners.
I
had COVID but got treated while in prison. And if I had been out of prison, I would have died, and I'm thankful to God to be alive.
The amnesty will go a long way in reducing our prison population, and that obviously means a reduction in the expenditure part of the prisons. And also, in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's a very, very huge advantage to us. And the prison.
Away from that, tucked away by the Ethiopian border, Sudan's Dinda National Park boasts the country's most diverse wildlife, having it been considered as the largest reserve in northern Sudan. Rangers, however, face a daily battle to protect it as human encroachment mounts, making it the last refuge for wild animals.
We are from the village of Maikarato, and they gave us 5 kilometers for traditional agriculture, but it is too small for us. We need more. In regards to our demands, we want to be allowed to cultivate mechanically, as it will be really good for us. Traditional agriculture is difficult and useless. I have a family of more than 20 members. Therefore, traditional agriculture makes my situation very difficult.
In the recent period, the Dinda Park has been exploited through aggressive cultivation, logging and hunting. There are all threats to the reserve, which is considered the largest reserve in northern Sudan. It has also become the last refuge for wild animals in northern Sudan.
There are programs set up by the organizations directed to local community through which they were given fruits from the reserve and have had their quality of life improved and were provided with cooking gases. However, the organization's existence inside this reserve is disturbing.
10 years after its launch, the site de Fleuve marks the failure of a high-end urban development project in Kinshasa, where luxury residences are in full swing next to the slums. During its launch, the promoters of the city de Fleuve promised a haven of peace away from the urban chaos of the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
The promoters of the city de Fleuve promised at its launch 10 years ago a haven of peace away from the urban chaos of a capital city of Democratic Republic of Congo, the largest city in French-speaking Africa, with an estimated population of at least 10 million people. Planned to build a 25-kilometer square of land reclaimed from the Congo River, the houses and small buildings served by pretty alleys of lampposts are to be a kind of small Dubai of Kinshasa, affirmed a promotional video in 2015, speaking of the most beautiful city in Africa. Rumba stars, bankers, businessmen, busy politicians, the novel rich were invested in apartments and villas away from the working class district of Kingabwa. La Cité de Fleuve, which was at the forefront of the surge of high-end real estate fever 10 years ago, was initiated by Mukwa Investments, a company registered in the Bermuda tax haven, managed by the French Robert Chudry. Strictly speaking, the build project quickly took water, with regular flooding during the rainy season, as in December 2020. At the start of 2021, around 10 finished constructions are surrounded by weeds. The president of the Property Managers Trust, Serge Kassanda, deplores the depreciation of the property.
Today, the situation of the inhabitants is deteriorating. For example, in the city de Fleuve, where the rent was $2,500 a month 2 or 3 years ago, today it's less than $1,000.
The 56-year-old Congolese businessman denounces delivery delays.
J'ai acheté un appartement à $185,000 en...
I bought a flat for $185,000 in November 2018, which should have been delivered to me 3 months later. On February 2019, to this day, it has not yet been delivered.
Après, soit le 1er février 2019. Jusqu'à ce jour, je ne suis pas encore livré, mais les biens est là.
The trustee sent a memo to the President of the Republic in February to denounce the water unfit for consumption, the problems of garbage disposal, estimating that it needs $50 million to repay the debts, rehabilitate the site and buildings, and develop new spaces by backfiling. The owners have demanded the arrest of French manager Robert Chandry, whom they accuse of their ills. At the end of 10 years, out of the total of 450 apartments, only 15% of customers paid the full amount immediately in weeks following the signing of the contract. 65% of people paid in 6 years instead of 3 years, and 20% of the people have never finished paying. Robert Chaudhry defends himself.
I still believe that this is a good project and that all the authorities involved are on board, including us, the Union Committee, so we are determined to see our rights through to the end.
A similar project to the city of the river Lubumbashi, the economic capital of the country, the southeast, has also been announced. Brian Mwenda, Switch TV.
On to other news, some schools and hotels in Madagascar have been turned into hospitals to accommodate the influx of COVID-19 patients as the Indian Ocean island has entered a second wave of the pandemic with the South African variant. Madagascar announced in early April it was joining the COVAX vaccine sharing program after months of resistance from the president. Apollo James with more.
Madagascar's Health Minister Jean-Louis Rakotovo announced the country had joined the COVAX vaccine sharing program, following through with a recent pledge to roll out jobs after months of resistance from the president. Health Minister Jean-Louis, however, told the local media that the number of severe cases had risen and warned that hospitals were running out of oxygen.
We came here yesterday and there were still places available, but now it's almost full.
Rakotovo told local media that the number of severe cases had risen and warned that hospitals were running out of oxygen, hereby having long queues of people being formed outside pharmacies in the capital, Antananarivo.
So far, medicines are free, except when they're out of stock. You have to buy them elsewhere. Medicines are free when they still have stocks available.
Madagascar is struggling to curb a second wave of coronavirus infection, likely due to the presence of a highly transmissible variant first detected in South Africa.
We have the virus, which is the South African variant, and this second wave also. This virus also has particularly, it stringes more severe forms, hence the increase of deaths in the Madagascar currently.
The government has meanwhile continued to promote the herbal infusion, which is based on the anti-malarial plant Artemisia, dubbed COVID Organics or CVO, which is sold in the drink and capsule form and has been widely distributed to citizens. Experts, however, have cautioned against the brew, stating it has not been scientifically tested.
It is then that we had discussions, exchanges with Malagasy scientists, and then we decided to go for vaccination. This is another way to protect the population. And on this subject, we are currently working on the COVAX initiative.
Madagascar, an island of 27 million inhabitants, has recorded more than 24,600 coronavirus cases, including at least 433 deaths.
Meanwhile, Libya has launched its coronavirus vaccination campaign for the general population in Tripoli, with the elderly and healthcare workers being given priority in the conflict-hit North African nation, having those over 70 getting the AstraZeneca jab, while the Russian Sputnik 5 vaccine being administered to medical personnel together with those aged 50 to 60.
Libya has launched its coronavirus vaccination campaign for the general population in Tripoli, with the elderly and healthcare workers being given priority in the conflict-hit North African nation.
Today is the official launch of the national vaccination campaign against COVID-19 in Libya, and most specifically in Tripoli, the capital of Libya.
According to the National Center for Disease Control, those over 70 years will be getting the AstraZeneca jab, or the Russian Sputnik V vaccine being administered to medical personnel, together with those aged between 50 to 60 years during the newly launched coronavirus campaign in Libya.
The Russian vaccine Sputnik V is available for people under 60 years old. The British vaccine AstraZeneca is available for people under 60 years old, as well as the Chinese vaccine Sinovac. All the vaccines are distributed in a special way, targeting different age groups.
Libya has so far received 400,000 doses, including 200,000 Sputnik V shots, 57,600 AstraZeneca jabs, and 150,000 from Turkey, thought to be China's Sinovac.
The vaccination will, God willing, reach all Libyans. We are also targeting foreigners, residents, and migrants. We want all these groups to be targeted by the vaccination.
The official launch of the vaccination campaign has seen Prime Minister Abdullah Hamid Deiba, who was elected earlier this year through UN-backed inter-Libyan dialogue to lead the country to national election in December 2021, getting the first jab. Namkana Samuel, Switch TV.
Time to take a breather. Stay with us here on Africa Focus. Still to come. Cape Verde ruling party retains power after winning legislative vote. Welcome back to Africa Focus. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Moving on, activist and radio presenter Mohamed Yusuf Bathily, also known by his stage name Rasbath, has been released from prison after he was detained in January alongside other prominent figures on charges of attempted coup. Take a look.
Freedom is something that everyone loves. Rasta can be stopped physically, but nobody can stop the spirit of Rasta. Those who arrested Mandela thought that by arresting Mandela it will be over, but the spirit of Mandela survived. They arrested Rasta physically, Colonel Alpha Yaya Sangare, Colonel Dayax, Colonel Wagwa, Mohammed Diko. I tell you that Rasta is free and I am out. See you on Wednesday for my program, Grand Dossier.
A fire fanned by strong winds raged in the foothills of Cape Town's landmark Table Mountain, having hundreds of University of Cape Town students fleeing their dormitories on foot along the main road. According to Cape Town's Mayor Dan Pluto, properties such as restaurants, private homes and historical structures have been destroyed, while having one firefighter bearing injuries.
As strong winds fanned the blaze, hundreds of University of Cape Town students had to flee their dormitories on foot along the main road as the library burned, which according to the Mayor Dan Pluto contains lots and lots of old ancient valuables.
On campus is more than 10 fire vehicles currently. We have 3 buildings currently burning sporadically, but this one is a major problem for us. It's the library, with lots and lots of old ancient valuables in the library.
At least one firefighter had been injured as emergency services fight to contain a fire that broke out in the foothills of Cape Town's landmark Table Mountain, whereby private homes and a historic structure and restaurants were destroyed.
But the situation will unfold during the course of the night. From here I will head back to Ruland Street, so that we can get to the necessary, more reliable information of what happened. I think during the night, early tomorrow morning, we will be in a much better position to say where and how the fire started.
Table Mountain National Park, which spreads over much of the city's unbuilt area, called on social media for hikers to leave the area and for motorists to remove cars parked in the vicinity. A first alert went up shortly before 9 a.m. on which 3 helicopters joined the fight later, dumping water on the inferno. Sazamunga, Switch TV.
Shifting gears now to matters politics, opposition lawmakers in Somalia, allied with the fired Mogadishu police chief Sadek Omar Hassan, have passed a stern warning to President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed's government of the potential unrest after Parliament voted to extend his mandate by another 2 years. Hassan ordered officers to block the parliamentary session that voted on the president's time in office, despite his term expiring in February, as tension rises. In a rejoinder, Somali President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed said he was willing to negotiate with stakeholders in Somalia's political crisis in order to find a solution. Robert Ouma reports.
Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed has signed a controversial law extending his mandate for another 2 years, despite threats of sanctions from international community and Western powers, denying them any support, having him being described as a warlord and a dictator by citizens of Somalia.
Before February 8, we recognized Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo as the president of Somalia. But since that day, we recognize him as a warlord and a dictator who wants to destroy the country.
The United States, a key partner in the war on terror, and the European Union has warned of sanctions and other penalties should talks towards election between the feuding parties not urgently resume.
If he rejects holding elections to stay at the via Somalia, we promise that we will not accept his rule by force. We are all united in that message, committed to act against that soon.
Key foreign allies and financial supporters say that the mandate extension threatens peace and stability in Somalia and distracts it from fight against the Al-Shabaab Islamist groups. Following a separate incident and a sign of the wide instability in Somalia whereby 15 people were killed and other 4 dangerously wounded when the minibus they were traveling in hit a landmine outside Mogadishu, of which, according to the government spokesperson Mohamed Ibrahim Maulimu, who blamed the attack on the Al-Shabaab.
These people don't know anything other than the gun. They shouldn't be forced to take up guns again. We have been advising them to drop their guns for the last 20 years. It is the beginning of war tonight, but we urge the government not to force people to take up guns against them. Otherwise, fighting is inevitable.
Somalia has not had effective central government since the collapse of Barre's military regime in 1991, which led to decades of civil war and lawlessness fueled by the clan conflicts. The international community has warned that Somalia's current political crisis could deal a blow to efforts and stabilize the fragile state after decades of civil war and Islamic insurgency. Robert Omar, Switch TV.
Still on matters politics, Cape Verde's Prime Minister Ulysses Correa Silva declared victory after results showed his party on course to win the legislative elections dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on a tourism-dependent economy. His supporters celebrated his victory in front of the Movement for Democracy's headquarters, terming it as a great victory to Cape Verde.
Cape Verde's Prime Minister declared victory after results showed his party on course to win legislative elections dominated by the COVID pandemic and its impact on a tourist-dependent economy.
Foi uma grande vitória, a vitória de Cabo Verde.
It's a great victory, the victory of Cape Verde. We were expecting this victory because he made a good campaign. We succeeded in convincing Cape Verdeans of the correctness of the government conduct in a very difficult time and the correctness of our proposals for the future.
E da justeza das nossas propostas para o futuro.
The 50-year-old Leaders Movement for Democracy, in power since 2016, had won 36 of the 72 seats in the country's National Assembly, according to results from 95% of polling stations tallied by the Electoral Commission.
We all came out stronger from those elections. We all came out stronger from this very difficult experience that is going on. The COVID-19 situation. We all come out stronger and more confident in the future.
Na convicção do futuro.
The MPD is nevertheless ahead of the opposition African Party for the independence of Cape Verde, which ruled the former Portuguese colony when it was one-party state led by Janira Almada. Results suggested the party would win 26 seats, dashing the 42-year-old lawyer's hopes of becoming the country's first female leader.
Em 2016 eu tinha dito que ninguém perdeu as eleições.
In 2016, I said that nobody lost the elections. This time, there were losers. Those who made politics a form of attack, not against the government, not against the MPD, but an attack on the country. A scorched policy by an opposition that is unconstructive, negationist, not very positive, very downright negative.
Pouco positiva, aliás, muito negativa.
After voting, opposition candidate Janira Almada complained the ruling party continued campaigning after the official end of electioneering on Friday, calling it a grave violation. Sazamunga, Switch TV.
And that's all here on Africa Focus. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Our director has been Antoinette Dead and producers Harry Chimea and Faith Ombua. Until next time, do have yourself a great day.